Hi, this is Dave Weber, and in this episode we're going to continue our discussions of method number 1. This is a bonus lecture where we're going to be talking about lens mount adapters with innovative mechanical features. Now, there are 3 types of innovative mechanical features we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about adapters with integrated aperture control rings, adapters with integrated macro focusing helicoids, and adapters with integrated tilt shift capability. Let's take a look at our first type of innovative mechanical feature, and that is adapters with integrated aperture control rings. Most lenses that we adapt have a built-in aperture ring, like this Nikon 50mm f1.2 lens. But some modern lenses, like this one, don't have a built-in aperture control ring. The aperture is controlled by the mirrorless camera. There's usually a wheel on the back where you move the wheel and it controls the aperture. No aperture ring on the lens. Now, some innovative adapter manufacturers have designed a dumb lens mount adapter that has a built-in aperture ring right in it. And what you do is you simply take your lens without the aperture ring and you mount it onto your adapter with the built-in aperture ring, and then you control the lens's aperture by moving the aperture ring that's on the adapter itself. Simple, and it works great. Let's take a closer look at some of the characteristics of these innovative lens mount adapters with integrated aperture control rings. First off, there are 3 types. One type has circles on it. The second type has numbers on it, 1, 2, 3, 4, up to 7 or 8. And the third type simply has a label on it that says lock or unlock. They all 3 work exactly the same way. And they all work by, look at this close-up video, by simply attaching your lens without an aperture ring to the adapter and then using the aperture ring that's built into the adapter to open and close your aperture. One of the advantages of this is that the built-in aperture rings in the adapters are clickless. It's totally smooth, moving from one position to the other. And finally, a minus disadvantage is that the labels on the aperture ring on the adapter don't tell you what f-stop it is. So overall, I really like these lens mount adapters with built-in aperture rings. They enable you to use lenses that don't have an aperture ring on your mirrorless camera, and you can control the aperture on the lens by simply rotating the aperture ring that's on the adapter. They're inexpensive, and I highly recommend them. The second type of lens mount adapter with a innovative mechanical feature are these types: adapters with integrated macro focusing helicoids. These adapters with built-in macro focusing helicoids take an ordinary lens and turn it into a close-up macro lens. Let's take a closer look at these amazing adapters. They come in a good selection. They're made for a lot of different cameras and a lot of different lens mounts. This one here happens to be a $100 photodiox stretch macro focusing helicoid. Photodiox stretch is what it's called. And this particular one happens to be for Pentax K lenses that are mounted on Fuji X cameras. And they're really easy to use. And these macro focusing helicoids are just the exact same thickness, as a regular dumb adapter. But they have the ability to extend by rotating the helicoid. Let me show you how they're attached to the lens. You simply take the lens and you line it up with the red dot on the adapter, and you give it a little turn, and it clicks in place. And then you have taken your ordinary lens and turned it into a close-up or a macro lens. One thing I would like to point out, though, that there is a big difference between how the macro focusing helicoid works with a regular lens and how it performs with a macro lens. Now, you can put a macro lens like this one, which already extends a long ways, onto your focusing helicoid. But if you put a macro lens onto your macro focusing helicoil, it doesn't magnify all that much more. Take a look at this slide. On the one side, you see what this 50 millimeter lens looks like on the macro focusing helicoid. As you can see, it does a lot of magnification. And on the other side, you see this macro lens on the helicoid, and it doesn't magnify all that much. So, how do I feel about integrated focusing helicoids that are built in to an adapter? I think they're great. I highly recommend them for regular lenses. They do a good job of magnifying, but I don't recommend them to be used with macro lenses. Let's wrap up this episode by talking about one of my favorite mechanical adapters. Ones with an integrated tilt-shift capability built right into them. I have a love and hate relationship with tilt-shift lenses. I could do an entire course on tilt-shift lenses, but today I'm just going to give you a brief overview. Let's take a look at some of the general principles. First of all, a tilt-shift adapter fits onto your camera the same way a dumb adapter does. No difference at all. This is what shifting looks like, and this is what tilting looks like. Now, tilt-shift lenses are usually used on a tripod. Also, because they have lots of controls and knobs, they're kind of fiddly and slow. I use them mostly for shooting static or slow-moving objects. Now, there are three types of tilt-shift lenses. The most expensive ones are these made by Canon and Nikon. They run from $1,000 to $3,000. They're the very best, of course. The second type are lens baby lenses. Lens baby lenses just tilt, they don't shift. And the third type are these tilt-shift adapters that are used with a regular lens. These tilt-shift adapters will take a regular lens and turn them into a tilt-shift lens. This particular adapter is made by photodiox. It's called the photodiox rocker. Costs about $200 US, and this one happens to be Nikon to Fuji X mount, Nikon F to Fuji X mount, although they do make a number of other mounts in their tilt shift rocker adapter. Let's take a closer look at this time at tilt lenses. Tilt lenses, how do they work? Well, they manipulate the plane of focus by tilting the lens. Here are some images that I've taken over the years with a tilt lens. Why would you want to use a tilt lens? Well, you can make the miniature city images that are so popular on the internet these days, but mainly I think people use them to get greater depth of field. There are 3 types of tilt shift lenses. As I mentioned earlier, the expensive ones that are made by Canon and Nikon. There are Lens Baby tilt lenses, and there are lens mount adapters that cost $50 to $300, and they generally can be used to turn any ordinary lens into a tilt lens. And I'd say the cons of using a tilt shift lens, especially a tilt shift adapter, is they're slow, they're fiddly, a lot of fooling around, and it takes a long time to learn how to use them. Long learning curve. All right, let's now shift and take a look at shift lenses. The way shift lenses work is you take an odd number of pictures, either 3, 5, or 7 usually, and they can be in the horizontal or the vertical format, and you have about a 20% overlap on these images, and then you stitch them all together in post-processing. You can use Photoshop, Affinity Photo, any software you like. My personal favorite is PT GUI. Now, here are some photographs of images that I have used a shift adapter to make panoramas of over the years. And here is one that I recently had framed. It's a picture of the Canadian Rockies. Why would a person want to use a shift lens? Well, if you need a wider lens and you didn't bring a wider lens with you, and you don't have a nodal rail. People who are serious about making shifted panoramic photographs sometimes use one of these nodal rails, which are expensive, and they're even harder to use than a shift lens. What are the pros of using a shift lens? They're fast, they're easy, and actually, believe it or not, you get less distortion using a shift lens than you do a wide-angle lens. So, overall, how do I feel about tilt shift lenses and tilt shift adapters specifically? As I mentioned earlier, I have a love-hate relationship with them. I kind of hate the tilt. It's hard to master, and it's kind of a one-trick pony. But conversely, I really do love the shifting. Thanks for watching.